Hello. So let's talk nutrition. Nutrition is complicated. It's one of the most complicated sciences because nutrition research can be interpreted and twisted to fit our biases and agendas, and in many cases we can outright lie about specific nutrition claims to suit our aims. This is why we can see such radical claims like the carnivore diet, i.e. eating only meat can cure autoimmune disease, and then almost the opposite, the vegan diet cures autoimmune disease. So how can both these claims be true if they're literally the opposite diet? So here are some facts about nutrition facts. Number 1, food is important. We don't know where disease comes from. People who know a lot, i.e. health experts, can fall anywhere on a spectrum from diseases caused 100% by genes to diseases caused 100% by the environment, with almost no one falling on either extreme. That means no one believes either of those claims 100%. This means that almost everyone believes that disease is caused by some combination of genetic predisposition and our environment. In other words, genes load the gun, environment pulls the trigger. Is that a trigger? And what do we mean by environment? Well, for starters, we mean things like socioeconomic status, toxic burden, nutrient deficiencies, stress levels, adverse childhood events and upbringing, and even maternal nutrition status, and on and on. And of course, diet, which plays a huge role in all of this. As a naturopathic doctor, I focus a lot on the environmental causes of disease, and I focus a lot on diet and nutrition. Here are some more facts. Number 2, our body needs certain nutrients to function. It doesn't make these nutrients on its own. If it doesn't get these nutrients from the diet, it doesn't get them at all. So imagine driving your car with a missing wheel, or an empty gas tank, or a missing intake manifold, or a malfunctioning piston. And by the way, I don't actually know what these things are, but you get my point. Now, your body is far more complicated than a car. We actually understand how cars work. Not me personally, but humans in general. Your mechanic understands how a car works. We humans have actually built cars, but we don't fully understand the infinite complexity of the human body. Nobody has, to date, built a human body. However, like a healthy planet or a well-oiled machine, your body needs certain ingredients to survive and to thrive. And not all diets can guarantee a complete nutrient intake. The vegan diet is notoriously low or incomplete in various nutrients, as is the standard American diet. Eating broccoli and rice for lunch is not the same as eating broccoli, rice, and salmon. Not at all. It's not the same as eating chicken wings and rice. There are certain foods that might not be good for some of us, some or all of the time. Reasons for this may be allergies or food sensitivities or intolerances. Certain health conditions might make it difficult or impossible for us to eat certain foods. Certain foods may have been appropriate for us at some point in our lives, like before we were diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and not others. Some of us, perhaps those of us who have had a difficult relationship with food or our bodies or a history of disordered eating, should not think too much about diet or food at all. Perhaps paying attention to nutrition for some of us might actually mean it's time that we need to reach out to our support team again for help. I personally fully support the exploration of what foods might be good for us and what foods might not. Over the years, I've developed a relationship with my body and the signals that it sends me through trial and error and observation to really dial in on what foods I thrive on and how much and under what circumstances. And I still mess up a lot of the time. So for example, I tend to do well with a higher protein diet. I don't do well with a lot of grains or dairy or gluten. And this is true for some people I know and some people I work with, but not true at all for others. And I don't actually believe in diets, i.e. having arbitrary food rules like no animal products, at least when it comes to health. I believe instead in creating an open conversation with your body and the foods you consume, perhaps making use of a translator, so maybe someone trained in nutrition, to get the conversation going. Fact number 4, most diet research, i.e. this food is good for you, this food is bad for you, is very hard to parse out. For example, is there a difference between someone who eats red meat and someone who doesn't eat red meat, besides the fact that one eats red meat and one doesn't eat red meat? For example, maybe the person who eats red meat also smokes or doesn't exercise or consumes the red meat in the form of quarter pounders and cheese. And maybe the person who doesn't eat red meat is eating kale and quinoa bowls. It's impossible to draw conclusions about a particular food without taking into account the entire context surrounding how that food is consumed and by who and in what circumstances. So are you eating the steak with broccoli or are you eating a Slim Jim? And there are no nutritional studies that tell a certain group of people to consume something like red meat 3 times a week for the next 50 years, while telling another group to do and eat the same thing but instead consume black beans. Instead, we look at people who consume these foods anyways, and the way they consume them or what they consume them with or who tends to consume these foods is not random or arbitrary. And these variables that influence who consumes what can pollute the data. So in the end, there's no one-size-fits-all way of eating. And so be wary of oversimplified nutrition advice. Be careful of documentaries that tell you that soy protein is anabolic and that you don't need protein to build muscle, or that eating eggs is worse than consuming cigarettes. And I mean, honestly. Or that coconut oil is the devil's favorite fat. And some of you may know which documentaries I'm referring to. So consider the context, consider how that conclusion has been drawn, and consider the question, what might this person, website, documentaries, or organization's agenda be? And is this advice right for me? And is there someone who I can talk to who can help me sort this information out, to uncover the nuance, to help me decide what advice to take and what advice to leave? I personally know very little about cars. I'd have a hard time reading a manual on how to fix my car's spark plug, whatever that is, particularly if that manual is written in Japanese. And so consider the possibility that a lot of nutrition research, and even worse, some nutrition articles, are badly translated car motor repair manuals, originally written in a language that is very difficult to understand. And consider the fact that no one really knows your car but you. So consider the nuance.